Hello, everybody. Welcome back to On Track GP. We're here this evening because we've got some very big breaking news to share with you. It is, of course, that Michael Andretti's F1 entry for that he was aiming for 2025 or 2026 has been rejected by Formula One just weeks after it was approved by the FIA. I'm joined here today with Jack. So, Jack, what do you think about the news? It's a pretty big thing considering the FIA said yes, but F1 said no.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not overly surprised given that there's been sort of this conflict between the FIA and Formula One about it. Ben Sulayem has been going on for ages about how he's so confident this is going to get done and how it's going to be such a positive thing for Formula One. And Domenicali's pretty much been shutting it down since day one. So for it to be rejected by Formula One isn't massively surprising to me.
Yeah, for sure. You're saying with Domenicali, he was, I suppose, he was the headmaster in denying this to this entry for Andretti to Formula One, and of course the teams as well. They were coming out and saying it's nothing against Michael or what he's trying to achieve by getting onto the grid, but the fact is that for the first time in ages, F1 is actually making money. The teams are actually being profitable, and now adding an extra team into that would really upset the kind of prize pool. What's your thoughts on that? Do you think it would have been just for the sake of having an 11 team, an extra team on the grid, they should have done it? Or can you understand where the kind of upset was coming from there?
Yeah, I fully get where the other teams are coming from. I think, sort of from what I read, the main concern was that if all these teams like Ferrari have been in for so long and they've built Formula One to what it is now and built up the revenue, it's not exactly fair for the pie of Formula One to be split an 11th way. That doesn't really make sense for Andretti to then come in and get an equal share of what everyone spent so long building up. So I think if they've not sort of devised a way of splitting revenue based on merit, then I fully understand why they'd be frustrated, especially like to Zach Brown, who's been sort of quite vocal about this before.
Yeah, for sure. And of course, the other side of it as well was the kind of space. People don't realize what space it takes and effort to actually put an extra team on the grid. I was doing a bit of reading into this a few weeks ago, and it turned out that if, say, Andretti were approved by both FIA and Formula One, that they'd actually have to build the garages at the certain tracks to accompany 12 teams as per the rules in the FIA. So they couldn't just build one, they'd have to build two. And Christian Horner was saying, circuits like Zandvoort, wherever, where it's already very tight, would have been a big problem. So I think a lot of that kind of really stopped the entry in the end. But it's kind of sad in a way because we heard Michael Andretti, especially in the last few days, he was talking about how they were testing a wind tunnel model to aim for the grid in 2025. And of course, he was talking about getting drivers like Colton Herta from IndyCar onto the F1 grid. Just give me a bit of an idea. It is a bit of a loss losing those extra two potential seats where we could have had more American talent or more junior drivers on the grid.
Yeah, I think it is a real shame, especially with Formula One obviously being owned by Liberty Media in America. We've seen Logan Sargent on the grid. We're seeing more races in America. So this did seem like it was a real chance for another American team to get onto the grid and really sort of propel it forward, because we've seen the gap between sort of Americans' love for NASCAR and IndyCar to Formula One sort of shrink and shrink and shrink. And they really seem like they're starting to embrace Formula One. So it is sort of maybe a trick missed by not getting another American team on the grid. But again, I can fully see why sort of it would cause more problems than good.
Yeah, for sure. Now the team did say this, or should I say not the team, F1 did say in the statement that they let out not too long ago that they would possibly look at a manufacturer-based entry with Cadillac in 2028. Of course, we know Cadillac is coming on board through General Motors as a power unit supplier to F1 that year. Do you think Andretti will try that again, or do you think potentially they could go down the route of maybe buying out the likes of a Haas team or something to get a fast wheel onto the grid?
I mean, from how long the Andrettis have been sort of speaking about this and trying, and like you say about them testing this wind tunnel, I don't think I can see a world where they won't try again. But I think in some way or another, come 2028, we will see some sort of General Motors Cadillac sort of, on the grid with Andretti, be that as a customer team, a supplier. I think they'll be there in some way.
Yeah, for sure. It'll be exciting to have another power unit supplier on the grid. And I suppose just to touch off on it really, this whole thing between the FIA and F1, we've seen this so many times in the last year where Mohammed bin Sulayem has come out and said about, I'm head of the table. I'm, kind of like Borat when he's like, I'm king of the castle type thing. But then you have F1 where they're kind of like, yeah, but it's our decision. And they've been kind of like loggerheads with each other. Do you expect this to be like a trend this season? You know, the whole Andretti thing is just one example. That seems to be constant back and forward between the two bodies, I suppose, two de factos in Formula One.
Yeah, I think that's the problem that comes when you have sort of a business head and sort of a sporting head, and then you've got sort of the overarching FIA, which sees over so much motorsport, and then you've got Formula One, which is a little bit more niche, and there's decisions that might be better for the FIA as like an overall, and then there's things that specifically Formula One want, and I think they're always going to clash, especially with big decisions like this, where bringing in Andretti was always going to be amazing for the FIA and was always going to cause problems for Formula One, and I don't think Domenicali and Ben Sulayem are characters that are going to back down either way, and I think I just can't see a way that they're going to always get on. I think that's always going to be the case. It's just sort of finding the best decisions that are going to help the sport grow rather than the business.
Yeah, definitely 100%. And another one that just came to my mind, obviously, Colton Herta. He's a very accomplished IndyCar driver. We know how good he is, or how good he has been over in the States. There was rumblings of him joining AlphaTauri before Nick De Vries got the seat last year. But this was another, I suppose, proposed entry for Formula One for him. Is this kind of whole thing, this rejection of Andretti, do you think it'd take a bit of an impact on American drivers like Colton Herta or like Pato O'Ward or maybe even Alex Palou, who could be looking at a potential F1 drive in the future?
Yeah, because it was almost looking like it was going to become a really nice sort of feeder route into Formula One. That if you're not in the UK and you're not going through these Formula 4, Formula 3, Formula 2, it was nice to see that there is another pathway that you can get into sort of what many people call the pinnacle of motorsport. So to sort of close off the opportunity and say, if you're going to do IndyCar, you're still going to sort of have these super license problems, and we're not really going to accept you, and you haven't got this American team that are going to take you through. There's another step back, and I think, yeah, there's so much untapped Formula One talent over in America that's sort of going to be shoehorned into this IndyCar and sort of other series, and it's going to be very difficult to see them come across unless you sort of do take the Sargent route. And well, we saw what did he get, a super license on the very last day of the F2 season?
That's right. Yeah, it all hinged on where he finished in the last race of the season. Thankfully, he got there and then got the points.
It was a mechanical failure away from not making it to Formula One, which isn't a route that sort of a driver of his talent should be sort of hinging on.
Yeah, for sure. I always think about that. Imagine if Williams had announced him and he didn't get the points in the end, it would have been quite funny. But it didn't happen in the end. So, all right. So before we go, I'm going to ask you one last question. A bit of a setback for Andretti, obviously. Will we see them on the grid in the future, though? Do you think they'll convince F1 to let them on, or do you think they'll arrive on the grid some way, be it through buying out another team or something? Will the Andretti name be in F1?
The Andretti name, I think, will be in F1 one day, purely because I think the financial benefits of them coming into the sport will just outweigh any sporting decision. We talk about the logistics of having to sort of cram another two garages into Silverstone and Zandvoort, and I think those sort of sporting problems, I think when they get all their documents and all their financial reports and they put them on the table and say, this is how much money we can bring to Formula One, it'll get to a point where Stefano Domenicali just gets overruled. And it's just, for the future of the sport financially and for growth, having an Andretti name in Formula One is only a positive thing.
Yeah, 100%. I tend to agree with that. The Andretti name, we don't have to really explain today how big it has been in IndyCar and Formula E and Extreme E and all these different sports. So, yeah, 100%. Well, Jack, thank you very much for joining me. Very late notice.
Yeah, no worries. They always tend to drop news on us on a Wednesday at 3:00. They could never just do it on a nice Saturday lunchtime, could they?
No, usually when I'm often preoccupied with something else, they've been making a trend of it lately. But hey ho, must be done. But thank you very much, Jack, for joining me. And that's been it on Track GP. Michael Andretti's Andretti bid for 2025-2026 has been formally rejected by Formula One. Make sure you keep an eye on Track GP. We'll be keeping you all up to date, should I say, with any news, information, all that good stuff that drops. And keep an eye over the next 2 to 3 weeks. We'll keep you all up informed and updated with the coming car launches and pre-season testing. So thanks a lot, guys, and we'll see you soon.